Okay, preparing the DC to DC converter. So this solid core wire is a little easier to work with when you're soldering onto DC. And I've run out of the red, so here's stranded, soft, flexible wire that's easier to work with after you solder, once you're in the box, wiring, connecting to other things. The DC to DC converter, like a computer chip, and obviously it's very delicate. That's why it's in this bag, to protect it. So let's try and handle it delicately. Don't get it dirty or dusty. And of course there is the in end, where the wires, electricity comes in, and the out end, positive and negative for both. And what we're gonna do here is have attached the capacitor, which is like a little DC battery. And of course the capacitor's legs are a little bit bent up here, but the longer leg, the longer wire is the positive wire, and the negative is the shorter. So what I'm gonna do to make sure I attach those correctly is I'm gonna color the longer wire red and the shorter wire black. Let's get instead here, this is better, permanent red marker. Yeah, that stays on better. If you accidentally color the shorter one red, that's okay, because we're going to cover that up with black in a moment. So this is kind of, you know, maybe a little more than you need to do. Whoops, drops of water. It's raining inside the classroom still. Okay, and now the shorter one black, and then we'll make no mistakes, because polarity, getting the positive and negative right, is very important with this DC to DC converter and capacitor. If you get them wrong, it smokes or blows up, or short circuits, or at worst, at best, it just doesn't work. So there we go, red and black. Now these go on the out, the side that says out, and it's absorbing electricity on the way out. That's the way I think of it. And all the wiring we're doing is coming from the front, the side with the little electronics, to the back where we'll solder. So here's out positive, here's negative. So I'll just put the red positive wire through the inner set of holes. Fortunately there's two sets of holes, so you can, which are connected together electrically, bonded it's called. So you can use one set for your wires and one set for the capacitor. Double check that I've got it right. Black wire coming through where it says negative, red through positive. Then I fold it like a taco, fold it up to hold it still, and then it's going to go in the helping hands here for soldering. And we'll cut about, you know, it's always better to have these a little longer, so we'll cut about 4 inches here of red, wire twice, and this is 18 stranded, I believe. So we're stripping off the insulation using the number 18 stranded. Both ends. About 3/8 of an inch is really it. It's not a quarter, that's a little too short, and not an eighth, that's a little too long. And then the black wire, the solid core, will do the same, about 2 pieces that are about 4 inches long. This is 18 solid, so I'm stripping it's the second hole there from the end. 18 solid is not the same as 18 stranded. And meanwhile, your soldering iron should be heating up, because that takes about 5 minutes. Get all this little trash out of the way. Had a little rain yesterday, actually a lot of rain. So, black, negative, through from the front hole. Oh, you can't see that. Through from the front side, through the hole, bend it like a taco. Same on the opposite side, black, negative, through from the hole on the front, bend it like a taco, bend it to itself, get that capacitor out of the way. Then these little bits that are sticking out, I'm going to cut off. The red, let's see how it fits. It might be that we have to take this and cut some of the strands off, but I'll twist it very tightly. And it doesn't quite fit, that's okay. So we'll take the other end here and take about half the strands and pull them to the side and cut them off. There's such a little amount of electricity going through this, all these solar Lynch-Buck circuits, that you can get away with this. So now we've got about half the strands, and that should easily fit through a hole if I just twist it enough. That's beautiful. Okay, and then fold it onto itself so it stays in place until we solder it. Like that. Same thing for this one. I'll take about half the strands, pull them to the side, cut them off. The other end of this, we don't need to do this because the other end's just going to get a wire nut, which actually more wire is better. Twist it very tightly. Make sure again that using the positive hole, twist a little more. Okay, and there we go. Just put it in the helping hands. Put on the goggles, most important thing of all. And just a drop of solder, not a lot. Helps if your hands don't shake, but if they do, so what? These bigger ones take a little more solder. Don't want to drop solder on the circuit because that could short circuit it. Fortunately, fell off. It looks like it's good to have your DC to DC tilted a little bit here, your DC to DC converter. That way any solder drops, it just drips off. So what I'm going for is I want these wires to be held in place so they don't move around, they won't come loose in the holes. I'm using, just a little more, another little drop, especially here. And don't forget the capacitor wires, those need solder too. When it's raining a little bit in the classroom still, that's probably going to go on all day. Okay, and I think we got it now. Clean off the tip of the soldering iron on the sponge, orange sponge. Check these. Make sure they're not moving around. It's a little hot, but not too bad. And then the last step is cutting off the long ends, especially for the solid core wires, because we don't want them to touch anything and short circuit. So here is one. The stranded are okay, and I'm using the flat side, the back side of this right side angle pliers. Here is another one, the two capacitor wires and the little negative wires here. You can cut. Don't cut them so short that they come out of the holes. Don't want that. We just want to prevent any short circuits. So they are mostly cut. I think that's going to do it. So okay, so that's the DC to DC converter, and when you're all done, double check that you've soldered red to positive, black to negative.